Hello, Kate. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you very much for coming all this way to show us your film Doppelganger.
Yes,
This
thank you.
is, am I right in thinking that this is the third film of yours that we've shown?
Yes, it is
Yes.
the third film.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, how far have you come today?
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, I've come from LA,
Yes.
from Los Angeles, so it's been a far journey, but I've decided to do it. Again after you being so generous, and the committee selecting my film third time in a row. That's cool, and I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. So, talk to us a little bit about where the concept for Doppelganger came from.
Yeah, it's actually based on a true story. This idea came up to me in an article. Apparently, there was a woman in Europe who wanted to fake her own death, and she found a woman on Instagram and started like messaging her, and they met up, and eventually, basically, her and her boyfriend they decided to make a murder, and they insinuated it like this was the killer, and later the police didn't even like understand at first because they put the body in that car, and the driver's license, everything showed up that this is the killer basically. But apparently she had some troubles with the family, and that's why she wanted to do it. But of course the truth came out later on, and so that kind of inspired this film. I made it, the initial cut I made for the film challenge that is happening in LA, which is, it's like a 2-week challenge. And so we made the first cut of the film, which was like 6.5 minutes for the challenge. And then I decided to, make my version. I wanted to extend it a little bit to how I envisioned it. And so that's what you saw on screen today.
Yeah. It's still quite a lot of story to pack into quite a short period of time.
Yeah.
How much of a challenge was that?
Yeah, it definitely was a challenge. I don't know. I guess I thought this was probably this idea for the challenge was something that I could maybe make into a short film. Of course, it could expand more and more, but I felt like maybe with proper writing, technique, I can come up with something that will overall tell the arc of both characters.
Yep.
And I also didn't want to, of course, I don't know anything about the real people who did it, right? But I want to take it from, just take that as a base, and make my own fiction idea. And I wanted to make even the killer a little relatable, and the beauty influencer more relatable too. I didn't want them to be, I tried not to make them like as cliche, and I wanted to make them a full people, who struggle with something, and they have some conflict going on.
And what sort of budget did you have to work with?
This was, first, like, a lot of people helped me out because it was for a film challenge, so I was able to convince them to help.
Yep.
And we were hoping to get maybe a prize eventually. We didn't get this time around, but everybody just liked to be a part of it and enjoy the experience. But it did come out still like pricey for me because I had to pay for location and obviously, all of the logistics with food and like the post-production. So this came up to about like $5,000 for me.
Okay.
But it was like actually a bigger film than I thought initially it would be.
Yes.
Again, because I played 2 roles, and so we dedicated a total of like 2 full days and like another like a pickup day to do it. And I didn't initially thought this would be this challenging.
And how complex did you find the whole process of the 2-role scenario?
Oh yeah, that was something I've never done before too. Initially, when I came up with the story, and again, this was all happening during that 2-week challenge time. So you can hear the clock ticking, and I was thinking, okay, well, I should find some actress that looks like me. We should just be alike. And it was hard, you know, but I really thought that through. I was like, okay, I gotta find someone. It has to be another actress. But then it was actually my DP who came up with the idea of double acting. He was like, well, you know, there's a technique and we could actually crank it if you're up for the challenge. And I was like, well, why not? Like, life is too short and, you know, you got to do what your heart desires, I think. And that would definitely, I think, elevate me as a filmmaker, because if we do it, you know, good enough, like this will only be a good experience. And so I ended up splitting. I always thought of it as like splitting into different days. Initially, I thought like, okay, well, first half a day we're gonna do this character, and then the other half a day we're gonna do the second character. But then it was a really complex process, and also technically it was kind of very difficult for the team. They never done it before, so it took a lot more time. That's why we had to extend to another second day, and we decided like, let's just do first part with the one character on one day, and then the second character will nail another time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was cool. You know, I felt, of course, a lot of pressure because I was wearing so many hats, you know, like producing this, and then like on the day of making it, I was already so tired, but I had to like be very focused. But again, like this movie really took out a lot of me, and I think partially was because of the fact that we just decided to do it on a film challenge, and the time constraint of 2 weeks was kind of hard.
Yeah. Slight change of direction for you. What sort of genre do you like to make the most?
I think my favorite genre is drama, but again, I feel like whenever I write something, and I did write a feature thriller and a feature horror, but I still kind of keep that drama element in, and you might have seen it as well in this film. There was a little drama, you know, that conflict in the end in the end when the killer is just realizes what she did. So I do like to infuse all of my projects, I guess, with drama.
Yep. And I should probably ask the question, what are you working on next?
Yeah, sure. I've made already like 5 short films. So I'm finishing up this latest short that I did, which is a drama. But I'm also focusing on putting together my first feature. And so I've decided to focus on this one story. I finished the script, and thankfully it's been getting good reviews from the industry people. So it's a Christmas drama. I've decided to make a film about how holidays are hard on people.
Yep.
And how all of the feelings, especially grief, is just so much more exposed during holidays than ever. So I've decided to commit to this project, and currently working on just figuring out the money and logistics.
Do you mind me asking if there's any personal influence in that?
Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely a personal influence. I've always, like, I feel like, since you've seen Parallels, right?
Yes.
So like my story with my Russian background and the fact that I lost my mom when I was 16, like since then I feel like holidays are never like as easy for me. It just kind of reminds me of the time that I felt the happiest, and I will never probably experience it again.
Yes.
But also there were other people in my life who went through similar loss, and there was this one particular woman who just kind of once shared with me that she lost her fiancé, and you know, she was young. She was like, I don't know, maybe in her 40s, and I just kind of kept that in the back of my mind, I guess, and I decided to write about that when a young person experiences loss with someone who they just started a life with, and it's just kind of showing how life can be so unexpected. You know, you plan for something, but you can never plan for something, and that's the story of this young woman.
I mean, it's a very interesting concept, because it's, you know, normally when people think about Christmas,
Right.
they think of, you know, white fluffy clouds and
Exactly.
cuddly animals, and so I commend you for looking to do something
Thank you.
different. Anything else you've got in the pipeline? Anything, you know, if you had, you know, a spare couple of 100,000, what would you,
Oh,
what
wow.
sort of film would you make?
Well, I think I would probably just put that 200,000 in this film, you know, in the Christmas film. I'm currently, you know, I'm like developing basically two versions, you know. And on one hand, you know, I'm shooting for the moon and see how much money, as much money as I can get. But also, if I find, you know, if I'm obstacle with this, the fact that I can't make, you know, can't make it for like $1 million plus, you know, I can downsize it to this budget, the lower budget, but still make it as quality as possible. So yeah, partially, you know, I'm here to like networking and see if maybe could it be a collaboration between countries or something, you know, always inspired by the other filmmakers, how they're able to make their films. So I'm gonna definitely try to find a way, like it will happen for sure, just don't know how, when, and like what kind of budget it's gonna be.
And looking back to your very first short film, to now, what do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned from there to the present day?
The biggest lesson.
Because we all go in sort of with one view, don't we? And then over the passage of time, our thoughts get, I don't know about corrupted, but the lights turn on in our mind, don't we? And I always think it's quite interesting for people to get a filmmaker's perspective on, you know, what they thought and what they've kind of maybe ended up with, or, you know, or any lessons they've learned that have. Imagine you're talking to a first-time filmmaker.
No, absolutely, you know, it's an interesting question, but I in a way, it might sound cocky or something, but I'm proud of the films I've made. You know, it was the time who I was and what kind of film I wanted to make. So the biggest challenge was, of course, dealing with time. You know, I think the time is always against us as filmmakers. So if I could allow myself to basically add one extra day for all of those films, and again, I'm just grateful that I had that type of crew around me who were willing to go for that. They were like, okay, well, I don't think we'll be able to finish this particular scene today. Maybe we should do like a pickup day. So I was blessed that they were willing to go out of the way and just, hey, let's make a day again. You know, let's commit to another 3 hours or whatever the next day. So sometimes, you know, people aren't like that, and that I was very blessed to have those people around me. So I'm very thankful to them. But yeah, if I had to make a big adjustment, that would probably be that. And I really tried to do the same with my first film. You know, my first film was 40 minutes total. The cut that was presented here was 30 minutes. And we made it in 5.5 days. And I wanted 6 days, but we had obstacles. And basically I had to downsize it to 5 days, and it just became an overtime day. So in other films as well, it was always something like, you know, that little extra 6 hours or something.
I lost my train of thought there for a second. Have we got any questions from the audience?
Where is your Christmas film going to be set?
It's written in New York, but I keep an open mind about where it's going to be, as long as it's winter, you know, and as long as I can find it cinematic. The idea behind New York was that, well, first of all, I lived in New York for 4 years, and I find it that a big city is always a little more isolated than a smaller town. So I wanted to like just at least keep that, you know, the sense of isolation and loneliness. And I wanted to just, as long as it's a big city, basically, I'm willing to move it to some other city.
Are you from Russia?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When did you come to to Los Angeles or New York?
Yeah, I came there 11 years ago. So I spent 4 years in New York and then 7 years now in LA.
Wow. Yeah. Quite a contrast.
If the current Trump regime is going to change the environment for filmmakers, specifically for filmmakers like yourself, for better or worse. Dare I ask that?
Yeah. I'm sorry, what's the question exactly? How it's going to affect me?
Do you think that the Trump regime will change how
I don't know.
it is for you to make film?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I can't know exactly what's going to change because things always change with politics and especially the Trump regime. So until it's like super set in stone and, you know, I will hear from my fellow peeps that they can't shoot abroad, you know, I will be like, okay, well, I got to come up with a better plan. But of course, right now, it's really hard to gauge. I know that some filmmakers are really kind of like, well, you know, I'm gonna make my own film anywhere I want, so they're trying. I personally, it depends. Like for me, I think it will all depend on people who I work with and who decide to come up and be part of this project. So if they say, hey, we have it all set in Europe, then I'll be like, okay, let's do it. Let's figure it out. Right now, again, yeah, it's set in New York, and but we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen.
Excellent. Any other questions about that? Oh, what? Janela, sorry.
With being in LA, I've heard that a lot of films are moving out of LA just with the costs of being able to produce it in California. Has that had any sort of impact on yourself, whether that's been an actor or a filmmaker? Or?
I'm sorry, you're asking if what impact?
Yeah, has it had any sort of impact, or have you seen the sort of the effect of the costs to shooting?
Oh yeah.
Like Hollywood and things like that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's always costly to shoot in LA and New York. It's much more, yeah, like for example, my first film, I had to go back to Russia and shoot it because it was a period piece, and also, originally I thought like, well, maybe I'll find some locations in the US, but it became I felt like it's gonna be, the number is gonna be just like 5 times more, you know, like I made my film, like the actual production was like 12,000, but you know, it ended up being, with the post-production, it ended up being like 20,000. But I'm sure if I shot it in the US or, you know, in any big city, that would be like 100,000 plus, because the production value was much more than I actually spent. And then, yeah, I think it's really hard right now for the US filmmakers to make their film in the US. So I don't know how it's going to change, you know. You know, the idea of what like Trump I think is trying to do is like a good idea, but I don't know how actually it's gonna turn out for us.
Yeah.
And then that's why like a lot of filmmakers are doing co-productions. I know a ton of filmmakers who either just shooting completely in Europe or they're collaborating, you know. So yeah, and I don't know, it seems it's always been a problem for filmmakers to shoot in their hometown. It's very, very costly. And, you know, at the end of the day, you want to treat people nice and you want to pay them, of course, but it's really a hurdle to raise money, of course. So it's like I've just, again, because of these film challenges that I made Doppelganger and my other film T that was shown here last year, I only, you know, I just was basically, thank you guys, because we made something together and you came up here to help me for the idea. You spent your 2 days to make a project. But when it comes to like a feature film, I can't do that opposite. I can't be like, well, you know, we were spending 20 days and we're all working for free. So.
If you don't mind me asking, how do you raise money for your films?
So the first film I did, it was a crowdfunding, and yeah, I've raised like 14,000 total. And then I spent my own money on post-production and festivals and all that. Same thing with T and Doppelganger. Yeah, it was all self-financed. Yeah, if I had, I guess if I was making a film, you know, that required more money, 20,000 plus, then I would probably use crowdfunding again. But I just felt like it's not that time yet, and if I use it, I already want to present something to people, being like, okay, well, I've raised say 100,000, and we just need this extra 50 to make something happen.
Yeah, it's you know, I think we all like to try and reserve that point where you think maybe us going back to a crowdfunder will have a bigger impact because you've got so much under your belt, and you've got so much under your belt. And I've just been thinking, I think this is actually your 4th film we've shown here, isn't it?
Yeah, which, no, I'm not sure.
Parallels, T.
Yeah. No, I think that this is 3rd, but
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
But I'll submit again. I have another film, Strangers.
Okay.
So this is the last one, I think, in my short,
Yes.
block. Let's put it this way. I will finish in post-production now, and I really think it's gonna be. It's a different. Like, I've never worked with this. The camera, like Ari, like the bigger, like diner view, and
Okay.
it's just going to be a different kind of cinematic experience.
Okay, so,
So-
go on. Well, now you've put the line out. Reel us in. Tell us a little bit about Strangers.
Yeah, Strangers is a story about 2 people, strangers who meet in a diner, and they strike a conversation about loneliness. So it's kind of like a little quirky, but also very, kind of makes you think about how lonely we are, I think. And I just made this film in one night, gathered a great group of people who, again, were willing to dedicate their time, and but it's something special. I think it's a story that I found through my friend, and it's a chapter in a modern Russian play that I just fell in love with, and I decided to adapt it to a screen, translate, adapt everything. And we'll see how the audience will react to it.
Well, again, thank you very much for coming all this way. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting
Thank you
me,
very
guys.
much
Thank
for continuously submitting films to Romford, and we can't wait to see Strangers.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you
guys.
ever so
Thank you
much. Thank you.